Hello, and welcome to episode 158 of the Casual Try Hard podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm James.
And we're recording a day late because we wanted to wait on Wizards to give us sweet content. So we are
Thanks, Wizards.
Yeah, thank you. We are recording Tuesday, shortly after the ban and restricted, well, just ban announcement. And I guess maybe we'll touch on the alchemy rebalances.
Yeah, I wrote them down here. We'll see if we get to them.
Yeah, just a random selection of cards that they decided to change.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I watched this guy on TikTok. He's like, I was befuddled by what just happened. These are befuddling developments. If you know what?
There's nobody playing with dungeons. We should fix that.
We should fix that. So if you would like to talk about your befuddlement about the most recent Wizards announcements, you can tweet at us at CasualTryPod on Twitter.
I think we just found the name for this show.
Befuddlement?
No. Needs more dungeons.
Needs more dungeons? There we go.
Yeah. If you want to tell us about how we do or don't need more dungeons, or give us your feedback on what you think this BNR is going to do, you can also hit us up on Facebook at CasualTryHardMTG, or you can email us, show@CasualTryHardMTG.com. We love hearing from you guys. I check the email regularly, so don't hesitate to, chime in, send us a message, send us a post, whatever you want to do, and let us know what you're thinking. That's why we do this, is for you guys.
Yeah.
We do have a new set release right around the corner. A couple weeks, I think. We're going to have Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. So if you guys are looking to pre-order anything from that set, we would appreciate it if you use our TCG Player affiliate link, tcg.casualtryhardmtg.com. Follow that link, get in TCG Player, and anything you purchase will help support the show. If you want to support us a little bit more directly, you can do so at patreon.com/casualtryhardmtg. Chip a couple bucks in. We really appreciate it. Makes us feel like we're doing something productive. You also get access to our pre-show. I usually post up the show notes, so you get a little sneak peek of what we're going to be talking about right before the episode goes live. And you get put on my mailing list for when I get cool stuff that I want to send out to you guys, usually roughly every other month or so. I try and do something for our patrons. So like I said, chip a couple bucks in, get put on my list, and you'll get some cool swag. Last but not least, we have our Discord channel. There's a link in the description. There's a link on all our social media if you want to get into Discord. We got tons of cool people in there talking about all sorts of stuff, whether it's, random news from the community or the banned and restricted announcements or different formats people are playing or projects they're working on. There's a whole thing in there about deck advice, if you want advice on your decks or want to see what some other people are playing. A lot of deck lists gets posted in there, and it's free. So come join our Discord. Like I said, link in the description, link on other social media. Hop in there and get a hold of us. So I don't think I have anything else. You got something else?
Well, I was going to say, unrelated to all of this official stuff, if the episode title is Need More Dungeons, I need to figure out how to Photoshop Will Ferrell holding an Acererak as opposed to that cowbell.
Yes.
But no, so we can jump right into what we got going on here.
Yeah.
And let's get started here. So we're gonna start with the first bans, which happened last Thursday, which happened in Pauper. A format that we touched on recently. So they made their new, Pauper Play Committee or Pauper Format Panel? That's it.
Yeah, PFP.
They made the PFP, and they're like, we're going to come up with some things to make the format better.
Yep.
And then a week later, they nuked 3 cards. So... They had ideas, they had things they wanted to do, and they did them quickly.
They did them.
So, the first ban was a Tog.
And out of the affinity decks.
Yes. And so this is where like fire design comes in, and like Affinity's been like a reasonable Pauper deck. It's been like around for a while, right? But then they printed 10 ridiculous cards, right?
New artifact lands that artifact lands are too good for modern, but we're gonna give Pauper 10 more.
I think about, right, when we saw the artifact lands for the first time, right? Didn't we both go like, "Oh my god, why are they printing artifact? Are these okay that they're tapped? Like this is wild, right?"
I feel like we said the exact same thing about Urza's Saga too.
Yeah.
Did they learn nothing from artifact lands? Now they're giving us enchantment lands?
Yeah. No, I did say like I thought it'd be cool to have enchantment lands, not just like not an enchantment land that's also like an unbeatable, uncounterable win con. So like they're like a Tog is too good because Affinity's too good, and it's like the problem with Affinity being too good is not a Tog. Right. It's the fact that you printed 10 indestructible artifact lands that like just subsidize the entire deck, fix its mana, gives it artifacts for its artifact count, and like the decks were Grixis because was it Deadly Dispute is also like a ridiculous card.
Yeah, surprise.
Like it makes an artifact, and they play Blood Fountain. Remember when that card got printed? I was like, oh, this card, like it just makes 2 artifacts. Yeah, that's pretty good. Right? So, like, the fact that it just makes 2 artifacts, it was like, so you printed all this ridiculous stuff, and the thing that you murdered was a Tog, and not any of the things that, like, cause the Tog to be a problem.
Like, I got a silly question that, like, just popped into my head.
Okay.
Aren't there, like, other Atogs?
So there was a, I don't know if it was a Cardboard Crack comic or something else. There is a 3 mana version of a Tog that gets +1/+1.
Tog in like Kaladesh. I thought we got one.
That's Ravenous Gremlins. That's an uncommon.
Oh, okay.
It's like I think it's the exact same card.
Yeah,
but it's an uncommon.
Okay.
It might have First Strike, or that might be the one from there's an uncommon from the Dungeons and Dragons set that like has First Strike. That's like 3 mana.
Oh, okay.
But there's a common that's like a 3 mana 2/2 that you can sack an artifact and make it +1/+1. So like not as good as a Tog, but if a Tog's main job is to eat a bunch of things to get Disciple of the Vault pings and then be flung.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, it does the job. But yeah, like it just feels like one of those things that, like, this card was fine, but then you just juiced the entire archetype. And you're like, well, we juiced the archetype. What's the best card in the archetype? I guess it's the Tog, so we'll cut it. But it's like, they can kind of fill something else in, and it's still just going to be like, it's going to just be like, okay, fine, I'm going to be playing, like, Memnites, or not Memnites, Mirror Enforcers on turn 2 for free. Like, it's going to be like Enforcer, or Frogmate, Enforcer on turn 2. And, like, is that any better?
I mean, the deck does that as well, though, right? It's not like you're on the Atog plan or you're on the Enforcer plan.
I don't know how many Enforcers it... Because I put together a version of the deck that was, like, legit Affinity. And I don't... And that was super far away from what the deck list was initially. I will look, though. We will.
Well, maybe we'll have Brad pipe up in Discord, and
he can tell us that we were super wrong. But it just seems like some of those things that, like, we printed a bunch of busted stuff around this card, so we're gonna make this card go away. When's this from? So I just went on the Pauper metagame, and like Affinity has already been like removed from like the from the list of decks on Goldfish. It's just gone. Like it was the number one deck in the format. Now it has Is It Scred, which is, you know, fine and all, but like that's not what it was like literally like 2 days ago. I can't imagine that it changed that fast. It must have just gone and then been like, well, we're gonna get rid of that.
Well, I mean, maybe they just erased the data points so that
maybe
like, whatever new affinity deck comes along, like they have fresh data for, and the old data is not skewing it.
Yeah, but it is weird. So is
Tron still there?
I don't know if it was. Let me go back and look. Because they already have new affinity lists up. No, like not at the top. So they got
that's probably what they did. Is they just scrubbed the data so they have good data.
Yeah, so they got rid of what's it called? They got but they got rid of a Tog. And then they decided.
I kind of mentioned it.
Yeah,
with Tron, they nuked 2 cards from Tron. One is Prophetic Prism, just 2 mana, draw a card, filter a mana, and that's basically their thinking. There is the Tron decks were using it to filter mana and just, you know, play whatever cards they wanted to, and getting rid of Prophetic Prism should curb some of that. And the other card was Bonder's Ornament, again out of Tron, and they said that this was kind of only Pauper legal as a technicality. They didn't really intend it to be played in the Pauper format. So it was a problem and probably shouldn't have been a common in the first place, but was because of how they print the Commander decks.
Well, it wasn't a Commander Legends card?
No. Bonder's Ornament was I'm pretty sure it was in a Commander deck. Okay.
But, like, yeah, it's just... so I did check real quick. They did do Mirror Enforcer, but they didn't do, like, Frogmite in the old list.
Yeah, it was in Commander 2020.
Okay. Yeah, so it's just... So they did the thing where they're like, well, Affinity's too good, so we're going to get rid of Affinity, and then we're going to take next deck up and get rid of... next deck up, which is we'll get rid of Tron, which fine.
Well, I don't think either of these I don't think either of these affect the archetype as much as a Tog does with Affinity. Like the Tron deck will still exist without Bonder's Ornament and Prophetic Prism.
Yeah, it'll just become a deck that's probably more colorless.
Yeah.
Right, where you could just like play like, you know, your like Eldrazi as your finishers, as opposed to like playing like Mole Drifter and Blink stuff, where you're like a 5-color deck off of like prisms.
Yeah.
It's funny though, you think about like they had to get rid of Astrolabe and Pauper.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had to get rid of the +1 mana Astrolabe.
Yep.
Right? It's just like, oh, okay. Is this effect strangely way better than we realized after all this time? I mean, there was a phase after Astrolabe that people were playing Prophetic Prism in Legacy.
Yeah.
And seeing like, is this actually good? Answer was no, but like it was like it's close.
I like where your head's at though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, we can just cast anything. So like they're trying to make Tron actually, you know, play colorless things and actually have to like do actual work.
Yeah.
As opposed to just having perfect mana and playing just all the best like big-ish things when they get to 7, 8, 9 mana.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being like, oh, I'm playing kind of like garbage things, or I don't have a thing to play, or I can't cast my Mole Drifter because my mana doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fine. Like, the thing that I... Like, there's always, like, a best deck, and I don't know, like, I just worry that, like, we're getting into, like, I don't want things to turn into what happened in, like, early Pioneer, where it's like, did something win a tournament this weekend? I guess it's going to get banned on Monday.
Well,
So,
I
like,
mean, unfortunately, I think that's the world that we live in now.
yeah, it probably is,
Like,
where people, like, complain about stuff till it gets banned.
Yeah,
And, like,
and realistically, that's the whole driving force behind alchemy.
It is. It is. I don't disagree that Affinity was too good, but much like Walking Ballista died for Heliod Sins in Pioneer, right? Like, it's like, well, a Tog was printed 1,000,000 years ago.
Yeah, and Antiquities.
And Antiquities. I own 4 of them, specifically 4 Pauper from Antiquities. Thanks, Wizards. It doesn't matter. They look sweet.
They do. I own Antiquities of Togs, not because of Pauper, but because I had them from when I was a kid.
Yeah. But, like, I don't have a problem with them banning a Tog, but it's one of those things where it's like, well, what's the new cards? Well, the new cards are the artifact lands. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to keep those in Blood Fountain and get rid of a Tog.
Do you think part of the issue is that even though it may not be the correct solution, it's a little bit more of an elegant solution? Like banning a Tog instead of banning, 10 artifact lands?
I mean, I think there's that. And, like, where it's just, like, you don't want to put 10... Like, you're going to impact more possible decks, because there's, like, a deck floating around Pauper that is Cleansing Wildfire Ramp.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Because, like, it's the Jund deck in the format.
Yeah.
But you get 12 indestructible lands.
Yeah.
So, like, your turn 2 Cleansing Wildfire... ramp yourself, draw a card is on way more often.
Yeah.
And, like, if you want to go super hard, there's, Geomancer's Gambit.
Mm-hmm.
From Modern Horizons, that's Cleansing Wildfire, that's plus a mana.
Yeah.
So, you have this, you would get rid of those kind of decks if you got rid of the artifact lands. But, I don't know, it's just one of those things that's like, and this is kind of something we bring up other places. Like, we printed a bunch of busted stuff, and instead of saying, "Oh wow, this stuff is busted on power level," we're gonna, ban the thing that is benefited from those busted things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hopefully, Pauper's in a better place where it's not just mono artifacts. I think one of the problems is, like, now Monarch gets, like, super powerful. Like, what is the deck? Boros Bully was the highest deck on MTG Goldfish now. Which, like, that's just, like, a red-white, like, I guess it was Scred. Boros Monarch or Boros Bully is third. Which is, like, fine. But, like, you're gonna end up with the same thing that you get in, what is it called? Like Legacy, where, like, Scred is just Delver. Mm-mm. Right? Where you're just gonna default to, like, playing blue-red. It's like, I get Delver and Bolt and, like, I guess Scred.
Yeah, and cool. A bunch of cantrips.
And a bunch of cantrips. I guess I can live with that. But, like, that's fine. Like, we've kind of settled into, like, that is the kind of Magic that people want to see played.
Right.
So,
or that people want to play.
Or people want to play, yeah. But hopefully it's better and people enjoy it more, because I know that a lot of people weren't happy with where Pauper was.
Yeah.
And, it's Pauper's a casual format, right? So people should, like, enjoy the play experience.
I mean, everything's a casual format now.
This is very true. It's very true. The only thing that's not a casual experience is, like, trying to get your secret layers. Got to get in there quick.
That's right. Make
sure you don't miss out. FOMO.
Hey, man, don't worry. They're going to have them up for a whole year now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, we decided we can make more money if we sell them longer, so we're going to do that. Bro, longer they're up, the more beans we get. It's like, oh, okay. Okay, Chad, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. All right. So now we're going to a format that we question if anyone plays, and that is Standard.
Yeah, like I don't even know if this format exists anymore, does it?
I have not engaged in Standard in any way, shape, or form in 6 months.
Yeah, it might even be longer than that.
I was gonna say it might be longer.
Think about it though. Standard used to be the entry format, right? It's what onboarded players, when someone showed up to the LGS, you were like, okay, we'll teach you the rules and we play Standard on Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
That was how people learned the game. And now they've replaced all of the like new player products, the Planeswalker decks, the dual decks, the Clash packs, all that. They've replaced with Commander decks. And I'm pretty sure they actually had a statement saying that we want people to learn the game through Commander. Yeah. So, like, Standard's whole job there is gone. And now, on Arena, like the only place where Standard had a reason to exist, it's replaced after being there for 6 weeks with Alchemy.
Yeah, it's like, hey, here's Alchemy because we just no one's playing Standard, so we're going to invent this new format. It's also kind of funny that they like invent the new format and then like make bans in Standard. It's like making Alchemy was your like admission that you were giving up on Standard.
Right.
Like why didn't they like 3 months ago make Standard bans?
Yeah.
And see if that made people play Standard as opposed to making Standard's competitor, then trying to fix Standard. It makes no sense, but when's the last time a Wizard's decision made sense?
Yeah.
Other than Alchemy separates you from your gems, which gets Chad more beans.
Well, like I said, I think when we did our Alchemy episode, I talked a bunch about how like my impression of what Wizards thinks the game should be is just like a rules engine that you throw a bunch of skins on. And I think they want Arena to be its own thing. That's the only thing that makes sense why they're doing all this Alchemy stuff, is because they want it to be its own separate thing that's only kind of tangentially the game. Like some of the cards are close to the real cards, but kind of like whose line is it anyway? The points are made up and the rules don't matter.
Yeah.
Or other way around. The rules are made up and the points don't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it might be very well that like they have there's no organized play. So why are you playing Standard? Now they're a little slow on their Alchemy changes, and we'll talk about befuddling. But like in theory, like every couple weeks, Alchemy could be new,
right?
So it doesn't get stale. Separate more people for more wild cards, and people are just like
the only
chasing.
Like timing. Yeah, I think the only timing thing they said was that Standard they were going to leave alone for 6 weeks, and then they would move into making some Alchemy changes.
Yeah, well, I think they wanted to do Alchemy changes like every month, but then they like kind of missed that. Yeah, with like this went like long because they decided to like wait till after some like a qualifier weekend.
Oh, that's right. There was some event that they wanted to.
Which I'm like it was like 2 weeks between when they were like, we don't want to change anything in the event. It's like, if you put a bunch of new cards on Arena today, the best deck would be figured out in a week.
Right.
And then they'd all have a week to grind it, and then you'd be done.
Yeah.
Also, the changes they made in Alchemy don't impact what the best deck is. So, well, some of them do, but not a whole lot. So, okay, Standard. After much not wanting to do it, we have come to the conclusion that yes, indeed, Elrond's Epiphany was not good for the format.
Surprise, surprise.
Yes. So,
I mean, it's also past like Strixhaven's prime now. We're 3 sets past it, so it's not really like driving sales of Strixhaven anymore.
Or Keldheim.
Kaldheim, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're a full year from Keldheim.
Yeah.
So yeah, like we're not moving packs of Keldheim off of people.
Actually, it would be interesting to see if Keldheim is still in print or not.
Yeah, it would. Like if they just were like, "Yo, it's gone now."
Yeah, it's not in print anymore. All the distributors have our product. We don't care. Nuke it.
Yeah. Who cares? Like we have moved the boxes out of our warehouse to someone else's. We don't care if they move those boxes.
Yep.
So, right, like Elrond's Epiphany was costed not high enough for what it did.
Mm-hmm.
And, right, they never considered the fact that you would, like, copy it.
Right.
Right, so what was that card? The like the 2 red, discard 2, make 2 treasures, draw 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, like I don't think anyone put together like, they can do that, and then they have all this extra mana that they can cast this and copy it on like turn 5, and then like their opponent just like no longer participates.
Yeah.
They like lose 8 life off of 2 attacks. Their opponent has like 2 unmolested turns to find the next one.
Right.
And, the copy spell stays in their graveyard, so they just have to find the Time Walk.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have to find another fork.
Right.
So, as we talked about before, right, like, this was and this is what Standard has been for the last, like, year and a half. Like, Elrond's Epiphany was the thing that went over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it didn't matter what you did before or whatever. It was like, I have buried you. All the stuff you did before this doesn't matter. You're not going to take any more turns. It just went over everything. So, like, unless your Goldspan Dragon was, like, casting you a Elrond's Epiphany,
right.
Like, you couldn't play, like, red-green Goldspan Dragons, really. Right? Like,
No.
even think about... what was his name? He played like Teamer. It was like red-green hasty creatures plus negates in the main deck. Right? Like you couldn't just be a red-green aggressive deck. You're like, I have to splash 3 negates, so I just don't get utterly clowned in game 1 by Epiphany.
Right.
And that event happened 4 months ago. Like, Epiphany was a problem back then.
It just went out of print though, so.
Yeah, probably. It just went out of print. So now it's good. It's good. Now we're able to see that it is a problem. Before,
just to be clear, I don't know that that's a fact, but I'll ask this week.
Okay. But yeah, so they got rid of that. I think the issue with this, and this is just me, is there was a kind of a split, from what I understand, of decks playing Elrond's Epiphany and decks playing Hullbreacher.
Okay.
And I think that all the blue-red decks that were on Epiphany, you just put Hullbreacher in its place. And that is, your opponent gets turns. They may not be able to do anything with those turns.
Yeah.
But they get turns.
And according to Reddit, Keldheim is out of print.
Okay. And like Hullbreaker Horror, right? Like, you just get the fun experience of never having a spell resolve.
Yeah.
Now, in theory, like, you only like get to play for 2 to 3 turns after it resolves of getting your spells bounced.
Yeah, if that. I mean, a lot of times, not that I've been playing a ton of like real formats on Arena. I've mainly been playing like historic Brawl, but anytime I've resolved a Hullbreaker, my opponent just concedes.
I was playing that Jeskai Indomitable Creativity deck that's in our Discord's deck section, and and I was playing a blue-black control. We were just going back and forth, and I had like 3 counter spells in my hand, and they just put a Hullbreaker Horror on the stack with 2 mana up, and I was like, oh, I can literally never beat this card.
Right.
So I'm just going to concede now. As I'm like, I kind of wanted to like cast counterspell on it and just be like, I had everything else literally covered, but did not have this covered. So congratulations. Yeah, but it was just like, oh, like this is not fun. So I think a lot of the blue-red decks are going to become blue-red, not blue-red Hullbreaker Horror decks.
Probably.
As opposed, like, they both cost 7 mana. In theory, like, Eldritch Symphony costs 6, right? But, like, Hullbreaker Horror, you have the ability to, like, on your end step, like, 7 mana, 7/8. Okay, cool. You're just not going to cast any more spells. Because if you're playing a control deck, your hand should be full of cards.
Yes.
And you're just like, oh, okay, like, you just don't get to, like, I will cast a Consider and bounce your thing. And draw a card. And then I will cast some other dumb thing and bounce your thing.
That is some miserable gameplay.
Yes. Speaking of miserable gameplay, they got rid of Divide by Zero.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so 2 and a blue, instant, return target spell or permanent, or non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and you get to learn.
Yep.
You know what Divide by Zero is good with interacting with?
Things that can't be countered.
Things that can't be countered. So what is the natural predator to Hullbreaker Horror? Divide by Zero. So what are people going to do? I can't interact with the thing on the stack.
Hey, wait, both of those things are blue, aren't they?
They are.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but you can't interact with it on the stack. You can't interact with it, like, once it's resolved, if your opponent has up, like, a mana.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of Hullbreaker Horrors. So, reading their article, the thought process for Divide by Zero was, it was just too generic of an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, your opponent plays a spell, no problem, Divide by Zero. They have a permanent on the battlefield that is difficult for you to interact with, no problem, Divide by Zero. So, like, there was, like, no deck building tension. It wasn't like it was a removal spell or a counter spell. It was kind of both.
It was both.
So you just had something that was like covered everything with like no drawback. And it was the main source of interaction for the what is the name of that card? Lord of the Drowned guy? Lear. Yeah. Yeah. It was the main source of interaction for Lear, since Lear says you can't counter spells.
Mm-hmm.
Or all spells can't be countered, not even yours.
Didn't say anything about bouncing them, though.
Nothing about bouncing them. So that was how they got around the drawback, the not being able to counter stuff was like, okay, fine, I'll just bounce it. And then... Do
you remember talking about Divide by Zero in our Strixhaven episode?
Maybe. I think I remember talking about, like, oh, it's cute that they said, you know, not 0 CMC because it doesn't mess with the tokens in Strixhaven. But, yeah, I don't remember exactly what we said. But,
like, it's kind of weird thinking back. Like, this is basically a 3-mana remand that draws you a card.
Yeah.
With extra utility.
Yeah, like, if you put it like that, it's like, oh, of course this is really good. But yeah, and like it draws you a spell. It might be a medium spell, but it draws you a spell. I mean, what's funny is now that we're talking about it, like Learn and Lesson is adventures, right? Remember when we were like, oh, if any of these cards, if the spell side is like remotely close, and then the creature side is like competitively costed. Or if either one is competitively costed and the other side is like remotely close, these cards are playable, right? And they're like, oh, here's Brazen Borrower, a like reasonable costed effect on the front side. We tacked 1 extra mana on it, and we tacked literally no extra mana on the creature side.
Flash flyer.
Yeah. And we basically gave you, we took 1 damage off of Lightning Strike on Bone Crusher Giant, and then gave you an undercosted beater, or
with upside.
yeah. Basically stats that you normally see on a 1 green creature, we gave you on a red creature that's easier to cast. And then did you target me? Take 2. So this is basically like, on the front side it is a reasonable spell. Like I said, it's +1 mana on remand. And
but it's not just that though, because it also can bounce a thing.
It's unsubstantiated.
I guess it's just +1 mana on unsubstantiate.
And like draw a card is worth a mana.
Right. Well, draw a spell.
Yeah, draw a spell. So it's basically unsubstantiate, draw a card. So they just tacked an extra mana on. So like the card doesn't cost more than it should.
Yeah.
Right? Because like unsubstantiate costs 2, opt cost 1. Put them together, you get 3.
True.
So it like kind of costs what it should, but you always draw a spell, and even if it's medium, like that spell can just be like hit your next land drop for 2 mana.
Yeah.
Which like any control deck is in for that.
Right.
So yeah, like it's funny that like this random uncommon, because like when I saw the band, I was like, really? Like it makes sense, but it just seems like they're just pushing it to be like a Hullbreaker horror format. Because think about it, if you have Blue-Red Epiphany and you are some psychopath that's been playing Standard on Arena and just playing Blue-Red Epiphany over and over and over and over again.
Ugh.
And then they cut your Epiphanies and you're like, well, and you're divide by zeros. You're like, well, I guess I'll play Hullbreaker Horror. I'll play some more removal, and I guess a couple counter spells, and that will be kind of what my deck shakes out to be. Like I know it'll take more tuning than that, but you're just like, well, I'm going to cut this 7 mana spell that can't be beaten once it resolves, for this other 7 mana spell that can't be beaten once it resolves, and we'll figure it out from there, right? Because even the plan of like discard 2 or draw 3 or discard 1, draw 2, make 2 treasures.
Yeah.
Like that plan's still good for Hullbreaker Horror on 5. Like that's still just like, ridiculous. They're just like, whatever. They play like the black-white Kaya. And you're like, okay. Flash on my Hullbreaker Horror, cast a spell, bounce your blocker, kill your Planeswalker. Like, cast your blocker again, I dare you. And you're just like...
put your hand so quick.
Yeah. Put spell on stack, put spell in hand. It's how to keep an Izzet Mage busy.
Yeah.
Right?
It's the car meme. The guy slapping the head of Hullbreaker Horror. This baby can fit so many counter spells.
Yeah, it's just like, they're all counter spells. So, it's just like, all of your spells are remand... Plus, it's just splice onto Arcane Remand onto every one of your cards. For 0 mana. And the card you draw is a 7/8. But, it just seems like they're not addressing what the blue-red problem's going... The fact that blue-red is still going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So... Like, I just kind of feel like we're just gonna... If anyone accidentally clicks onto, like, the standard tab in the Playblade, when they run the mini game of what format am I going to play? I felt so old. I was like, I want to play, like, unranked games with this stupid deck that I have so I can get, like, cast green spells or whatever it was. And I was like, okay, click the thing. And then I was like, why am I playing ranked? Okay, come out, finish that game, come out. Okay, I'm going to go into unranked. Click. put myself back into rank. Did it like 4 times. And I was like, oh, okay, no. The one that has bot play is the unranked, the one that has the extra option. What am I doing? But I did it like 4 times. I'm just like, dear God, why is this laid out so poorly? But yeah,
that's why I started playing Historic Brawl.
you just go in there and you just click last played, and you're like, this is safe. This is good.
I've got like 4 decks built. They cover all of my challenges.
There you go. Streamlined. But yeah, so if someone accidentally like tries to click into Historic Brawl and they end up playing a standard game, they're gonna be like, why am I getting Hullbreaker Horde? Why do they have 2 of them? I was playing Brawl. I'm so confused. Yeah, it just seems And then they got rid of Faceless Haven.
For some reason. Something about like monocolored red and white decks?
Green and white.
Green and white?
So the standard format has been unchanged since pretty much, I'm going to say, what is it? What is it called? Midnight
Realms?
Hunt? Yeah, or Forgotten Realms. Right? It's been Blue-Red Epiphany. And what are the decks that are good against Blue-Red Epiphany? Mono white and mono green. So why are you mono white or are you mono green? The main reason to be a monocolored deck is you get access to Faceless Haven. Right? Mm-hmm. You play all Snowlands, so you know you can turn on your Faceless Haven. Right? The only way you can play all Snowlands is to play all basics. Because right, you can't play like the common snow dual land in like a constructed format.
Right.
Right. So if you want to be always able to turn on your your Faceless Haven, you have to play all Snowlands. So then that like it's like, what were the 2 best aggressive decks? White and green. So you couldn't play like a Selesnya deck because your mana was awful. Right, if you wanted to also have Faceless Haven.
Yeah.
And like having Faceless Haven
not an aggro deck.
Yeah. And like having Faceless Haven was the way you like protected against sweepers. You're like, okay, you sweep me, take 4.
Yep.
So yeah, like it makes sense if they get rid of that, it knocks the aggressive decks down. So that you could maybe play, like you're incentivized that you could play red green. Right, where you could play the non-snow dual lands and, play the basically the, again, forgetting that guy's name. I wanted to say Julian Assange, but that's a totally different guy.
That's a different podcast.
That is a totally different podcast, yeah. But, what was it? Anyway, but like now you can play like red green and it wouldn't be like embarrassing, right? You could be like, oh, here's my Magda into my like 2/3 haste werewolf kind of thing, as opposed to just being like, no, I can't play like, I can't play a green card and a red card in the same deck because my mana doesn't work with Faceless Haven. So like it makes sense, but it's just, I don't know if this fixes any problems. Like all 3 bands taken together.
I just had like a weird thought pop into my head that led me to another realization real quick.
Okay.
While we're on the topic of standard. We were talking about, your Magda start, and I was thinking about like what decks used Magda to ramp. And it was the Ren and 7 decks, right?
Yeah.
That were copying the token with a Seeka's Chariot.
Mm-hmm.
I can't for the life of me remember if I know they like modified a Seeka's Chariot. Did they ban it too? This is terrible. It's kind of like, I don't want to say my job, but it's like important to me
to like know what's going on.
To know what's going on. So, I have no idea if it's banned or not.
Alchemy changed it, but I don't believe they banned it in standard. Yeah. So again, I'm also in the same boat of I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I don't see it on the banned list here.
Yeah.
So do we go back to that being the best deck? Where you just ramp into Renin 7 and Asika's Chariot, make a copy of the giant token?
Well, I mean, the deck that did that the most was mono green. So, like,
weren't the early builds of it, though, red-green, though? And they were using, like, Jaspera Sentinel and Magda to ramp into it?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the, again, I can't think of his name. That was the deck that, like, finished second at the last Mythic Championship was, like, Jaspera Sentinel, Magda, like, you Sentinel into Magda into, like, play Ranger to class on turn 2, like, you've dumped your whole hand, and then you, like, play something big the following turn. Yeah, like, you could go back to that, where you're not as pressed to play Snowlands, but if you have mono green as your deck, right, there's part of me that's like, okay, so, like, this mono green deck right now that I'm looking at from Goldfish, they have 3 Faceless Havens and 2 Lair of the Hydra, right? Like, taking 3 Faceless Havens out of that deck, it makes it worse, right? But you turn, like, you go to 3 Lair of the Hydra, and you play 2 more forests?
Yeah.
Like, your deck's a 9.5 or a 9 out of 10 as opposed to being a 10?
Right.
Like, it's still, like, good. Like, I can see where, like, now it makes sweepers better that you don't just, like, get clowned as you, like, tap out for your sweeper and they're just like, okay, like, I'm going to kill you with this land over the next 2 turns.
Yeah. I mean, we still have that other land, too, though, the Crawling Barrens.
Yeah, Crawling,
like, that was a good land.
Yeah, it got played, like, until Faceless Haven. So, yeah, like, maybe you put Crawling Barons in, and it's like, the first hit is smaller, the second hit is as big, and then the third hit's bigger. Like, over 3 attacks, doing the math, you do the same amount of damage. Right, you deal 12.
Like, the nice part about Crawling Barons, though, is that you can activate it and not turn it into a creature.
And just make it big, yeah.
Yeah, so if you got, like, extra mana kicking around, you just dump it in there, don't open it up to a shock, and then next time around, it's out of shock range.
Yeah. Also, really random, I saw this random tweet that Den of the Bugbear, if you activate it multiple times, when it attacks,
I heard this.
You make multiple tokens, 1 for each activation?
Yep. It works the same way with Raging Ravine.
Okay, yeah. I did not, like, think of that at all.
Yeah.
So, like, if you have a Den of the Bugbear at, I don't know, 9 mana, you get to make 2 tokens when it attacks? Woohoo. Yeah, so
I mean, if all you have is Den and a Bugbear and 9 mana, though, that's, like, probably a reasonable thing to do.
That is the best thing you can do, yeah. So, all right, so we've got mono green at 21% of the metagame right now. Mm-hmm. Like, this is with the ban in it, so they haven't put them out there. Mono white was 10%. And mono white had 4 Faceless Havens.
Okay.
So a little bit more reliant on Faceless Haven.
Yeah, it's because the dragon's garbage.
Yeah, but, like, dragon is garbage, but putting 2 dragons in is not the worst thing. Or putting 2, like, going 2 dragons, 2 crawling...
Yeah, or Crawling Baron, yeah.
Yeah, 2 dragon, 2 Crawling Barons. Done. Like, the deck is still, like, pretty much the same deck it has been. Yeah. So, I think you're just gonna, like, make these decks slightly worse, but what's the second most played deck? Is it Dragons? Third most played deck? Is it Control? Now, granted, Is It Control has Elrond's Epiphany and Divide by 0 as its 2 first cards. Now, Unexpected Windfall is the, like, discard, make treasures card. There you go. Mm-hmm. But, like, I don't know, like, the top 4 decks aren't any different at the end of the day. You've not done anything to be like, oh, This is a different format now.
Right.
But again, like, if no one's playing your format, then
What's
like,
it matter?
Yeah. Why do you bother to curate a format that no one's playing, that you're like actively trying to make no one play?
And also, we're 2 weeks, 3 weeks away from a new format.
Yeah, well,
So who cares?
I think that part of it is like this might be a lesson they've learned. You can't go into spoiler season with Elrond's Epiphany legal.
That's true, because then it just jades everything that you're looking at.
Every card you look at, like, you can't get excited because you're like, oh, like, it just loses to Epiphany, right? Like, there's no card like, I'm going to build a cool deck around this. It's like, oh, I'll just get clowned by Epiphany. Yeah. Now, you might just get clowned by Hullbreaker Horror, but it's like, oh, I'll just get clowned by Epiphany. So that is, I don't want to play, I don't want to get excited about this. I don't want to open packs of this new set because the cards don't matter. Right. So by banning stuff now, it makes the cards matter more. But it's wild that we have, like, what, 7 different creature lands in Standard right now?
Yeah, that is
7.
pretty crazy.
Think about, like, we had Mutavault. Then Mutavault went away. Mutavault was too good. And then we had the Zendikar tap ones that, like, what, Shambling Vent and Wandering Fumarole saw play?
No, the green-blue one did, too.
Oh, yeah, Lumbering Falls.
Yeah.
Great. But, like...
And actually, the green-black one saw a little bit of play,
Oh, yeah,
too.
Hissing Quagmire. They were fine. Yeah. They weren't, like, overpowered.
The
like,
red-white one was garbage, though.
Needle Spires.
Yeah.
2/1 double strike. But we had those 5, and then we didn't have, like, creature lands in Standard for a long time. Yeah. Like, after that, there wasn't a playable, like, I guess we had Mobilized District in War.
Yeah, War didn't see any play, though, right?
Like, there was, like, a bad, like, Planeswalker prison deck that played it.
Yeah. Yep.
But, like, you had Battle for Zendikar block, and then I think, like, 5 years, no creature lands.
Yeah.
And then that land went away, and, like, a year later, it was like, yo, do you want all of them? Just all of them. Take them all. Here are 7 of them. Because, like, for how, like, they were like, yeah, creature lands are just way too good. We can't have them. And they're like, here are 7. It'll be fine. And it's like, oh, this one's too good. It's like, yeah, cool. So we're just going to put, like, some of the other creature lands in our decks. And they'll be less good, but they'll be better than, like, planes. This, like, C- creature land is better than planes 80% of the time. Or at least on the first 2 turns of the game. It's better than planes on turn 1, 2, and 7. And then every turn past 7. So, yeah, I just will play C- creature land. It'll be fine. But yeah, I think we're just going to have that. But, like, if they left the format unchanged, like, there'd be 0% chance that anyone gets hyped for Kamigawa Neon Dynasty.
True.
So, I think they have to do it now. But, yeah, I don't know if this is going to change the format enough for anyone to want to play. And again, like, what's the next format? What's the next, like, in air quotes, big event? It's like a historic Alchemy split format tournament that, like, features the Alchemy cards. So, like, not even Standard. Like, remember when, like, all the arena tournaments were, like, Standard and Historic?
Yeah.
Or just Standard? And now they're just like, no, we're never gonna like make Standard a format that we're gonna show you,
right?
And that's
like I said, Standard only exists for 6 weeks after a set release.
Yep, that's basically it. If that long.
Well, I mean, that's how long until the first
Oh,
alchemy
fair.
release.
So the first alchemy. Yeah, so like you can play those cards. But like what we don't know is like, okay, are people going to play are they just going to play alchemy with the new Neon Dynasty cards and just bypass standard?
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Not that we'll ever get the data, but it would be interesting to see what that data shows.
Yeah. All right. Modern is A-okay, no problems. You're going to play against a companion 70% of the time. We love it. We love it. That's what we thought. We thought it'd be a fun play experience for you to see a companion every time you sat down.
You know what? All these other players are having fun with their commanders, so we wanted to make that an experience that you had to deal with every game.
Every game. Yeah. So you get to sit down and go like, oh, I'm going to play against Thoughtseize and Mistress Bauble. This will be fun. Oh, yeah. I'm going to play against Elementals. This will be fun. Oh, I'm going to play against no creatures in two different Teferis. This is also fun. And then occasionally, I don't know what I'm playing against, but they have a 5-mana 5/5 in that they're showing me. So, okay, cool.
Well, you forgot about the deck that's almost the size of a commander deck.
Battle Blitz?
No, the Yorion piles.
Well, that was like the Yorion pile I think of is it can also be a Kahira deck. Kahira? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But like elementals?
Yeah.
For like Kahira, when I see Kahira, I'm just like, oh, you're playing 0 creatures. You're staring at like 4 Dovin Vetoes and you couldn't be happier right now. Right? But like the Yorion decks, I think a lot of them are like just elementals. Like I think that's like some version of money pile. But Modern is A-okay, it's great. There's nothing to complain about. You should love it. It's did you buy 4 boxes of Modern Horizons? Oh, you didn't? Well, you're priced out of the format. Good talk. Love it. Perfectly balanced. Everything's great. So, no changes in Modern, which I'm joking. I haven't played Modern in a while. The people that play Modern say it's like in a good spot, but
or at least it's okay.
At least it's okay. Like it does feel like homogenized around the companions. Particularly, like what is it, like Loris is like 20% of the format.
Yeah,
and like that's like not okay.
Well, like it's crazy that even the mid-range decks, like mid-range in air quotes, are Loris decks. So the mid-range decks in the format have a deck building restriction that they can only play cards with CMC 2 or less.
Yeah. I think that if Loris would have been fine if it had the same restriction as Karuga. Where Karuga was, you can't have any cards in your deck CMC 3 or less. Less than 3, right? So you can't play... right? You can't play anything that's small. Like, it wasn't like permanence. It was just, you can't play any spells. If Loris was, you can't play spells CMC greater than 2, right? That cuts off Kolagon's command. That cuts off Force of Will. That cuts off Force of Negation.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of the, like, it's still good. It's still probably banned in Legacy.
Yeah.
But, like, it cuts off a lot of the, like, you know, dumb stuff. But the fact that it's, you know, just permanence have to be 2 or less. It's like, oh yeah, it's fine. You can, like, only play 1 and 2 drop permanence, but then you can play Force. And it's like...
Elrond's Epiphany.
Elrond's Epiphany. Yeah, that's fine. A+. Good times. But yeah, like, just having watched a lot of Modern just feels like there's, like, Dragon's Rage Channeler, Monkey, Epiphany, not Epiphany, gosh, Urza Saga, and Loris.
Yeah.
Is like, that just feels like everything you see. And it's like, huh, like, is that okay? And apparently right now it is. So.
People are just happy to be casting their Colossus hammers.
Yes. Yes, they're like, I can't believe I got this Colossus. I can't believe Saffron Olive made a deck, and now it is the best deck in the format.
Got into the ground floor when these were a quarter.
Yeah, exactly. So Modern, perfect, no changes. Legacy, they made the change they always make. They banned Ragavan.
Yeah.
Right? And like this doesn't address the underlying problem with Legacy.
It's kind of like the exact opposite of they did in Pauper, right?
Yes. In Pauper, they were like, the new busted card stays, the old card goes.
Yeah. So they got rid of the old efficient threat and left the new enablers. And in Legacy, they got rid of the new efficient threat and left the old enablers.
Yeah. And like that might just be something that is like how they ban things, which is like it's easier to ban the threat than it is the enabler, right? Because you see the enabler and you see all the other things it could do, not with this card.
Right.
So you're like, well, let's get rid of this card, and then maybe those like enablers will go do other things.
It's also kind of hard in Legacy because there's so much redundancy. Like, there's so many cards that are close that, like, if they were to ban Daze, like, you still have Force of Will and Force of Negation that are, like, close to Daze, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, is Daze enough? And the answer is probably no. So then, like, how far do you take that?
Yeah, how far do you push back?
Like, you start getting into a game where, like, how much of these cards that we're talking about banning is Legacy? And, you know, if we are to get rid of Force of Will, Force of Negation, Daze, Brainstorm, like, that's not Legacy anymore.
No, I would say that, so people have been making an argument that, like, you should get rid of Daze. And some people were like, well, it helps hold down combo. Daze is not there to hold down combo. If Daze snags a Dark Ritual, it's an accident. Mm-hmm. Like, Force of Will and now Force of Negation, they're there to cover you for combo. Daze is there to make it so your opponent that's trying to play a fair game of Magic can't.
Right.
Right? Like, Daze is more there for, like, I'm going to play a blocker for your Ragavan. And it's like, no, you're not. I'm going to just Daze it, and now I'm going to get all this value off of my 1-mana threat. Mm-hmm. Where, what's it called? Where, like, Force of Will is the, like, oh man, it's my turn 0. I'm getting, like, comboed off the planet. I'm going to cast my Force and, like, not die.
That's true.
Right? Like, it's a very different thing. So, like, getting rid of, like, you can't get rid of Force, because getting rid of Force makes it so, like, basically Storm and Reanimator are your best decks. And then no one's participating in games of Magic. You're, like, just, like, you're just rolling dice. Yeah. It's like, oh, I rolled a 6. Well, I rolled a 5. Well, I guess I get to win now, because here's my, like, Grizzlebrand. Because, like, think about, like, when Black Red Reanimator has, like, a Chancellor and is on the play, right? Like, you just watch your opponent murder you, and you're just like, okay, like, I couldn't do anything, right? And that's, like, and Chancellor is just their preemptive Force of Will. Mm-hmm. They're just like, here's my Force of Will. Please don't cast your Force of Will, because my Force of Will has already countered it. I'm going to go do stuff now. And I'm going to turn my Force of Will into a threat that counters all your Force of Wills. And now I will win the game. So, like, I think that, like, you could get rid, like, they keep printing these threats that they have to get rid of, right? And I don't think Ragavan was, like, reasonable, but, like, Ragavan and Death and Dreadhorde Arcanist. But it doesn't, like, address that, like, the fact that
even a step back is Renin 6. Not that it was a huge threat, but it's so aggressively costed.
Yeah. Right, like, and, I mean, that made, if you think about it, like, that turned the Delver decks into Rug Delver, but they were still just the Delver decks plus Renin 6. And it was just like, oh, here's this thing that makes it so I can wasteland lock you out of the game. Or, oh, you're playing Death and Taxes. You will have no creatures ever.
Right.
Like, I will invest no cards, and you will have no creatures. And it's like, oh, well, I got like 7 for 1 with this Renin 6. I guess I lost the game. But like, it doesn't fix the fact that if they're gonna keep printing threats at the level they're printing threats, they're going to. Yeah, they're going to. They're always going to break Legacy.
Yeah.
Right. There's no way they don't. So, right, like you either have to like address the underlying problem, or like even more aggressively ban threats, right? Because
I mean, maybe they don't care about having to ban threats out of Legacy.
Maybe not, but I mean, so the Ragavan problem is solved, but like now you just put like Delver back in your deck, and you're like your Dragon Rage Channeler Delver and Murktide, and those are your threats, and you are playing the like exact same deck. It's worse, right? Like if your opponent flips a Delver, you feel sad, but not as sad as when you just get like monkeyed 4 turns in a row and your opponent casts 2 of your spells and has 7 mana.
Well, what's crazy is like, yeah, without Ragavan, they're worse than like the decks were 2 days ago. But with even not counting Murktide, but with just Dragon Rage Channeler, they're better than they were before MH2.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, having played against Dragon Rage Channeler in Historic, that card is absurd.
Yeah.
Just the fact that, like, you're playing a game and you'll, like, click on your deck and, like, you're on card 42, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, you're 10, 11 turns into the game. You're on card 42, and your opponent's on card 25. Yeah. And, like, they have 25 cards left in their deck. They've seen 30 cards. Like, you just can't compete.
Right.
Though there is a certain part of me that loves when my Dragon Rage Dragon Rage Chandler opponent surveils a land of the graveyard and then never hits their third land. And it's just like, you could have kept that land and cast like 3 spells the next turn, but instead you were like, no, I don't need that land. And then you never found your next one. You got too greedy. You flew too close to the sun.
Have you played much with Dragon Rage Channeler or just played against it?
I've just played against it. I've not played with it.
Part of the problem is, especially on Arena, lands is a hard type to get into the graveyard.
Fair.
Delirium.
Fair.
So,
yeah.
like, if you're trying to get to the air to get over some blockers, I think a lot of times it's correct to bin a land if you see it on top.
Yeah, that's fair. That is a fair point. And it, like, turns on your Unholy Heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the Delver deck from January 2021, I think that's right, is worse than the Delver deck from January 2022.
Yeah.
Like, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Right? And it was still one of the top decks in the format. Hopefully, people aren't hearing the Discord sounds. If they are, sorry. Raw and unfiltered. But, yeah, like, it doesn't fix the fact that, like, you shouldn't print a set that just, like, rotates your second oldest format.
It's crazy. Well,
like,
I mean, get used to it, though, because we've got Straight to Modern with Lord of the Rings this summer, and then Modern Horizons 3 next summer.
I think Lord of the Rings got pushed back to a January release.
Oh, did it?
Because Netflix is releasing a Lord of the Rings show in the fall.
Netflix is? Amazon was, but
maybe it's Amazon. So I think Wizards is trying to piggyback off of whenever this show comes out. It's like November. I think they're trying to piggyback off of any hype that could be driven from that, because that was the again, I think it was Saffron Olive, like tweeted like, "Oh, this makes sense that they pushed it back," and he tweeted like the teaser for the new show.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, like like we're gonna be playing like I don't know, like Frodo. Is Frodo gonna be like a blue like 2/2 flyer with Surveil? And like when you get Delirium, it has hexproof.
Yeah, who knows?
And you just be like, oh, cool. But if they like, and another thing is think about all the decks in Legacy, which is a hard thing to do, but just think.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. What are the cards that the other decks have gotten recently? Death and Taxes is playing Yorion, a piece of equipment. Yeah, I guess you have Saga, Solitude, and Death and Taxes, and what's his name? The Cauldron Complete.
Yeah.
Right? So you have the Bant control decks, which are Prismatic Ending, Swords to Plowshares, Uro piles.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And but there's a lot of decks that have just like not gotten a card in years.
Right.
Like Depths, which 3 years ago was like at the top of the metagame, has not like realistically gotten a card in like forever.
Yeah, what was the last card they got? Veil of Summer?
Veil, yeah, probably. And at this point, like, the deck's unplayable because of Uro. Right? Remember how hard it was to play against Death and Taxes when you had to worry about swords?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now they have swords and a 0-mana swords.
Yeah.
After
Solitude.
Yeah, Solitude, right? They have a 0-mana swords in Solitude. Now, every deck's playing, like every white deck is playing 4 swords and 4 prismatic endings.
Yeah.
Can never do that.
Right.
So a deck like that hasn't got anything. Like, has Elves really gotten any new cards?
I don't know. Do they play the 2-drop 2/2 that whenever an elf enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1?
Maybe they might play that. It's better than Dwinnen's Elite, but also not because it doesn't work as well with Heritage Druid. But yeah, like they could play that. I'm not sure, but like
I'm not sure if they do or not.
But like if you look at the decks, like all the old decks from Legacy, they don't.
Oh, they got Allosaurus Shepherd.
Allosaurus Shepherd. There you go. They don't. Those decks typically don't get a lot of new stuff, right?
Ooh, and Grist.
So like Doomsday got Thassa's Oracle. Yeah. Painter's only a deck because of Saga.
Right.
So like I just feel like it seems like they print all these cheap threats, and every cheap threat goes into Delver.
Yeah.
Right? And so Delver is the deck that always gets better, that always gets the part, or is best able to assimilate things.
Yeah.
Because
its game plan is the most generic and the most pieces fit into it.
Yeah. So like Delver is always going to get the most tools.
Mm-hmm.
And so like if you're not willing to like get rid of Daze or some other cantrip or some other part of the core of the deck, this is just going to keep happening.
Yep.
But there are some decks that Painter's only as good as it is because of Urza Saga. Then you have like Jeskai Control and Jeskai Ragavan, which Jeskai Ragavan was just white to splash Prismatic Ending.
Yeah.
Then 4-color Control, which is just like Uro and removal. But like it doesn't feel like things get a lot of new cards. or that like makes sense. We have Selesnya Depths. We're doing it. No Hex Mage.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of taken the place of Turbo Depths, and even that plays more like a Maverick deck than Depths.
Yeah, and then we have Maverick down there, but like Sultai Depths is 1.2% of the meta. Way to go, buddy. But it doesn't. It feels like every set now there's a card that goes in Delver, right? Also, like if they would have got rid of Expressive Iteration, I think that's like a net positive.
That's true. Right, I didn't think of Expressive Iteration.
There's no reason. Was it Bob Wong mentioned like maybe you get rid of Expressive Iterations? Like he had a list of like legacy changes, and one was like you can get rid of Expressive Iteration, but like the 4-color control deck, it's red. I think just for Expressive Iteration, or for like just Pyro Blast in the sideboard. Oh, this is Anzid's deck. Is the first one that comes up on Goldfish. Yep, he has 2 Expressive Iterations. Yep. Which, do you know how much Expressive Iterations are?
No, how much are they?
$6 a piece.
Jeez.
I have like 20.
Well, make them go away, man.
I need to make them go away. Yeah, I'm like that's not sustainable. Yeah. But like that, like you get rid of that and you get rid of like a catch-up mechanism. It pushes people playing control decks out of red. Because that is the only red card that he has in his main deck. And then in the sideboard, he has Meltdown, the cards you can't get on Magic Online. Pyroblast, and then Red Elemental Blast. Right? But like, why does he have Meltdown? Because Saga's everywhere, and it's how you kill Saga tokens.
Yeah.
But... oh, gosh. I also just scrolled up and I saw the tabletop price for the deck and was like, gah. $6,200.
Welcome to Legacy.
Welcome to Legacy. Magic Online is the cheaper alternative. $800. Buy two of them.
That's way less than $6,200.
This is too. Oh man, Golgari Depths is only $2,600. A bargain deck.
Your version.
My version is now.
Oh, now it is, yeah.
Yeah, I defoiled the whole thing and put gutters on my house. Woo! Adulting! But it just feels like going forward, the Delver shell is just that. It's a shell. And they're just going to put in whatever, like, stupid uncommon that got, like, half play tested.
Yeah.
Into their deck and just be like, oh, I guess this makes me better now. So, like, this is, like, this does, like, getting rid of Ragavan does get rid of the thing that I think, like, the feel bad of my opponent resolved a Ragavan, I can't win. Yeah. Right? Like, you look at your hand and you're like, oh, I don't have fill in the blank removal spell, so I lose. Arena deck list, they did a thing like, what would you change about all the formats if you could, like bans and stuff? And Jerry's like, well, Ragavan's not the problem. You just need to, like, play removal spells in your deck. And it's like, people are playing, like, 4 swords, 4 prismatic endings.
Yeah.
To kill Ragavan. But it has dash, too.
Right.
So, like, you kill their one on turn 1, and then they just dash one in. Or, like, they top deck it late in the game when it's a card advantage and engine and mana engine. It's like 1 mana, draw a card off your opponent's deck. Like, and deal them 2. Right? Like, you wouldn't print that card as like a sorcery.
Right.
Like, 1 red, like red, deal 2, impulse draw off your opponent's deck. Like, you wouldn't do that.
Return this to your hand.
Yeah, return it to your hand. Like, you wouldn't do that, but, like, that's what the card is. So, like, people did play removal because he was like, oh, well, you should play more removal instead of, like, your interactionless combo deck. And it's like, even the decks with interaction just get buried by this card.
Well, I mean, the problem in Legacy is you can't just play removal, though, because there's so many decks that, like, don't care about your removal.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're forfeiting every other matchup. And then there's decks like D&T, where, like, the whole point of the deck is to make your removal not good.
Yeah, or make your removal so expensive it's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, or just, I don't know, fill in the blank, like combo deck. Like, yeah, it's like I'm playing 4 bolts, 4 fatal pushes, and, and 4, I don't know, terminates, right? And your opponent's like playing like Doomsday.
Yeah.
And they're just like, okay, so you have 1/5 of your deck is dead and does nothing. Excellent. Yep. I guess I win.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, or your opponent's playing like Reanimator and they're like, boom, Grizzleband, draw 14. And you're like, terminate it 2 turns later. So it's like, that doesn't fix any problems either. So yeah, I like just play more removal. It's like, but then there are just decks that like don't. Yeah, those combo decks just don't care, and like you can't, like you have to play stack interaction, and which leads you to playing Daze and Force. But like you can't like force. You can force a Ragavan, but like now you're down like, you're like they're like Volcanic Island Ragavan, and you're like 2 for 1 myself.
Yeah.
Right, like that doesn't work.
Ponder that I needed to fix my hand,
and then God forbid they're like,
you're gonna run
God
away
forbid
with
they're
the
like
game.
Daze you, and you're just like, oh God, I guess I'm done. Yeah. Right, and that's the other thing. Like Daze, like makes it so you can't force a Ragavan, or like makes it so you're like, all right, I'm gonna like play my swords and hope to God that you don't have a Daze, because if you do, I die.
Yeah.
Right, and like, as much as people think Legacy is a fast format, like people really enjoy the fact that you have all these like important decisions and like, oh, I'm brainstorming which 2 cards do I put back to shuffle away.
Yeah, like realistically, it's only a fast format based on the number of turns played, not the actual like length of time played.
But I mean, even like think about like the number of like games against Dilver that you've played that are just like 20 turn slogs.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right, like everyone remembers like the flashy like black red Reanimator. You just get clowned, and like you lose on turn 1. But like they forget about the times that like black red Reanimator gets forced and then waits 4 turns and like tries to go again, and like just like the slog that can be. Mm-hmm. Also, did you read about like Ragavan?
No.
They were like, oh yeah, like it only has a 56% non-mirror match win rate. ... But it's won twice as many trophies as any other deck. Right, so they were like, oh, the win rate's not great, but it also has twice as many trophies as the next archetype, and it's like, so it's not good. But, like, if you're good at playing it, you just win trophies all the time.
the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not a convincing argument that, like, right, the win rate's not great, but, oh yeah, it is winning trophies constantly. It's like, okay, so you have a bunch of people that are, like, gravitating to the deck that might not be, like, Delver players.
Yeah.
And so the win rate might be a little bit lower. But it's like, what is the win rate of the, like, of the top half of the players? And it's like, oh, like they're winning 70% of their matches. Interesting. But then the bottom half is winning like 35 because like it's not an easy deck to know what you're doing.
So that's true too. Like the data that they used to base this ban off of would have included Eternal Weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Eternal Weekend, when you registered for it, you got access to every card on Magic Online?
Yes, you did.
So how many people you think entered that tournament said, click, 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 I want the best deck. Oh, it's Ragavan.
Yeah, and then they didn't play
like
it well.
had never played the deck before and like were brainstorming on their own turn without a fetch land.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a significant number of them. Right? Or like, people that, like you get people playing the best deck that aren't as practiced with it. See us playing a PTQ with Hogak.
Yeah.
Right? We weren't as practiced with it as people that had ground on Magic Online for the last, 3 weeks with it. We were we played some games and Goldfish some stuff and, knew the base lines, but we weren't, super skilled and practiced with it. So, our win rate was lower than someone who was, super good. And, and then it's oh, well, in my hands, Hogak did poorly, so it must not be the best deck. And it's no, it's still the best deck. You just weren't as good with it. And so Delver's the same way. Where it's oh, I went 2-3. This deck's awful. It's no, maybe not. Maybe it's just maybe it's you. Maybe it's not the monkey's fault. Maybe it's your fault. All right, so we got all that. So Ragavan's gone. Delver decks are still better than they have ever been in the history of Delvering.
Yep.
So cool. And now on to Magic's premier Eternal format.
Historic?
Historic.
Yeah. Not a ton of change. Memory Lapse was suspended, I guess. Now it is officially banned.
We get wild cards. Yay.
Hopefully.
I think now that it's officially banned, we do. So that's
Does that mean we get wild cards for Elrond's Epiphany, Divide by Zero, and Faceless Haven also?
No, because they're still playable in Historic. I think is the argument. They're still playing
versions of all of them.
Yes, the altered versions of these cards are available for play in our other two formats, so you will get no compensation for this.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, bro. Bro, I already got the beans. Don't give them the beans back, bro. Bro, Chad eats the beans. I don't give beans back, bro.
Especially not right before a set release where they need their wild cards.
Exactly.
We'll give it to them midway through when they don't need them.
Yeah, when they're good. So they made that change, and so they changed Divide by Zero. I'm skipping over the giant elephant in the room.
That's fine.
They changed Divide by Zero. They made it so it doesn't learn unless the card had CMC, was it 4 or less?
4 or less. Yeah. So they're offsetting the tempo loss, where if you divide by 0, the big thing, the person who cast the Divide by 0 was getting a mana advantage and getting to draw a card off a learn. Now you're only getting to draw your card off a learn if you're either tempo negative or neutral.
Yeah. So they're trying to make it a little bit fairer.
Yep.
And then they made we talked about Hullbreaker Horror, and so they have decided that perhaps we should allow this unbeatable card once it's on the battlefield to be interacted with on the stack. So it can now be countered. Yep. Which is good.
Unless you have a Leer out.
Fair.
Yep.
They've changed Leer now that you bring up Leer. They changed Leer that you can only use its flashback ability on your turn.
Right.
So you can no longer flashback stuff on your opponent's turn.
Yep. Can't Fading Hope out of your graveyard on their turn anymore.
And then they I guess we'll talk about the arena exclusive cards.
Well, do you want to do Teferi first?
Yes, you have misnamed him. You dead named him for Historic. He's no longer 3 fairy. He is now 4 fairy?
Teferi.
Teferi?
I did not misnamed him because I said he is now unbanned and is now Teferi.
Okay, I missed the Teferi part. You are correct.
Yeah.
So they decided that Teferi is fine if he's +1 mana to be 2
and +1 loyalty.
+1 loyalty.
Yeah.
And if the static is your opponent can't cast spells on your turn, as opposed to not being able to play at instant speed.
Right.
So
which is more fair.
It is more fair. it like secretly kind of turns Teferi into like the ultimate like combo protection. Like that's what it was, combo protection plus like one counter mirrors, right? Now it no longer is just like the hammer in the counter mirror, but like it is the fact that you just get to silence your opponent on your turn.
Yeah.
And just let you do whatever you want is powerful. I don't know if that's good enough to get him played. But
yeah, I don't know at 4 mana.
Yeah, like at 4 mana the effect is not that impactful, like the bounce.
Right.
And the static being worse, like it might just be one of those things that it gets like nerfed and then it's not good enough. Like you know, turning those knobs just turned it from like there was no mana cost, loyalty, like set of things that could make it just okay. It's either busted or bad. Yeah. And this might just have fallen onto the realm of bad. Right? Like, I don't think you can just add mana to it and leave the static the same because that's still miserable.
Right.
And I don't think you can change the static and like leave the mana cost and everything else the same, because coming down on 3, like you still have the problem of if it resolves, you have to spend your next turn dealing with it.
Yeah.
Like, so you just can't spend your mana. So, yeah. But they're giving you Teferi. I guess he wasn't banned, right? Or was he banned?
No, he was banned, yeah.
So they're giving you back your Teferis, but you get to keep your wild cards.
Woo.
Yeah. Yeah, so generous.
Thanks, Chad.
Yeah. Bro, I have a kind heart, bro.
They got one over on him.
He
was out to lunch one day.
He's out to lunch. Bro, why are you giving beans back? All right, so...
Ran out of pre-workout.
Yeah. Bro, Brock and I had to go get more. It's Brad, not Brock. Oh, it's hard. Maybe it was Brock. No, it was Brock.
No, it was Brock.
It was Brock. Okay. So they made some changes to some of the Alchemy exclusives.
Yeah.
So some of these were things that people like called like right away. So Fearsome Whelp triggers on your upkeep now.
Yeah, instead of at the end of the turn.
Yeah, so like now your opponent has a chance to interact with it before like you get paid off for it.
Yep. They also like randomly gave it haste. I don't know that giving it haste changes anything or matters at all, but
they gave the whelp haste, not the thing that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. The whelp.
Okay. Yeah, that probably doesn't like do a whole lot for it, but I'm sure it was like, well, we're taking
2 mana 1/1 flyer with haste. Like I don't think.
Yeah, we're taking something away, so let's give them something back that's minimal.
Yeah.
Maybe.
They should have given it menace, not haste.
Yeah. It's a scary little dragon.
I mean, he's fearsome.
He is. You don't want to get in front of him. We have Inquisitor Captain. So this is the like weird collected company on a stick.
Yeah.
So right, it would enter the battlefield, and then you would like seek 2 cards and like, or just take 3 CMC cards out of your deck.
Yeah,
and you
seek 2, and then one goes in your hand and one goes in play.
Oh, one went in your hand? I thought one went back, back in your deck, but whatever. Regardless,
maybe you're right.
Regardless, it spawned a deck where you just continually blinked it, and copied it. Where you were like,
oh yeah, the other one goes back in your library. You're right.
Yeah, you're like Inquisitor Captain, and you get a Glasspool Mimic, which copies Inquisitor Captain, which gets a Glasspool Mimic. Right. Copies Inquisitor Captain, and then you're like, oh no, I got a Charming Prince. And so then you blink your Inquisitor Captain.
Right.
And then you like try to like just make a giant board of Inquisitor Captains. And you play like Ephemerates and stuff and Soul Herders. So they were like, yeah, it should only be on cast. Now,
well, it's not a cast trigger. It's still an ETB trigger, but it's only if you cast it.
Okay, fair. But you have to cast it from your hand, or cast it. I guess it's not from your hand.
Yeah,
and then have it resolve and hit the battlefield.
Yep.
So the problem here, and this is the huge like alchemy problem with the current arena economy. So let's say this was a Saffron Olive deck that he played online. He's like, okay, you see him play it, and you're like, oh man, that's so cool. So you like finish off your playset of Charming Princes. You get 4 Soul Herders. You get your last couple of Glass Pull Mimics. Right? You get all of the cards that you need to play this deck. And then 3 weeks later, like, it is changed and does literal nothing. Like, none of the cards you have now do anything.
Right.
For the deck that you got them for. So you're out all these wild cards, but you no longer have a deck.
Yep.
Right? Like, I think it's the right decision to nerf that card, because like it did not work the way they wanted it to.
Yeah.
I also feel like if they had people like play test for like a week, they would have come up with this.
Yeah.
But now someone's out a bunch of wild cards. Now you could argue that in the video that you watched, Saffron Olive was like, this card's getting nerfed. This is not okay. This is getting nerfed. I can't see this not getting changed. I think you might even said like,
PK said the same thing.
Yeah, like I might have just been like, don't buy cards for this deck because it's not going to be here in a month, right? Yeah. So fine, there was a warning, but if you're just like, oh man, that's so neat, that's something I want to do, and then it gets nerfed, or you like came to it on your own and you like figured it out, you're like, oh, this is so cool, and then it gets nerfed, you're just like, oh, I'm out all the wild cards. Or, all the packs I opened to try to get these cards.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, I didn't have anything, so I just opened a bunch. I, like, bought a box of Throne to try to get Charming Princes.
Yeah.
And then the wild cards associated with them. And it's like, oh, well, that sucks.
Yeah, was not a good idea.
Yeah. Sanguine Brushstroke? Is this the thing that, like...
goes and gets a
blood artist?
Yeah.
So
it also makes a blood and drains when you sacrifice blood.
So now it only like deals them 1 damage, or they lose a life. You don't. They lose a life.
Yeah, you don't gain a life, which is like the smallest of tweaks that probably doesn't matter.
Yeah, because like I feel like people wanted it for the blood artist.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that.
Like, the fact that, like, Blood Artist was already in the format, right? The fact that you kind of got, like, 8 Blood Artists?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think that, like, people were in it for the blood token.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
And then, Townraiser Tyrant, the 4-mana 4/4 that came into play and perpetually made a land deal you 2 each upkeep unless you sacked it.
Yeah. It not only does it do that, but it also strips all other abilities off the land.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah, so if you hit like a Den of the Bugbear, it's now just taps for red mana.
Okay. So now it only hits non-basics. Before it could hit anything.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, the card's really good, and I think it's still really good.
Yeah, I think it's like I don't think, like, there's going to be a target for it instead of 100% of the time. 80% of the time.
Yeah, I played a little bit of Historic today after the BNR, like while I was waiting for you to be ready. And that's the deck that I was playing was Dragons.
Okay.
And I cast Townraiser Tyrant 6 times, I think. And once it didn't have would have not had a target.
Okay.
And realistically, you're normally trying to hit like the non-basics anyway because they're better.
Yeah. So. Like if they have a steam vents in an island, you're going to hit the steam vents.
Yeah, or Faceless Haven or Den of the Bugbear or whatever.
Yeah, like this, it's not like it's a huge... It makes it worse, but again, like, it makes it worse by such a small amount. Like, I don't know if it, like materially impacts how the card plays.
Yeah, I think the nerf of the Fearsome Whelp affects Town Razor Tyrant more than the nerf of Town Razor Tyrant.
Yeah, because like you have like one less way to accelerate into it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's at some point, like, so the whelp just reduced the cost of something by 1, right?
Yeah.
Right, like, now is the whelp really any better than Dragon Servant?
Probably not. It flies.
It
but
flies.
That's like marginal.
Yeah, Dragon Servant was a 1/3, but just like before, right, like Dragon Servant had to live an entire turn cycle. You had to make it to your main phase before you got the benefit from Dragon Servant.
Right.
And that's basically like Town Razor, the Fearsome Whelp has to make it to your upkeep.
Yeah.
But if they can kill it, like there's no
difference.
There's no difference. Like
yeah.
Then like, oh, it had to make it to the main phase versus had to make it to the upkeep. Like they're just gonna kill it on your they're just gonna kill it on their turn anyway. So it's basically now just Dragon Servant, which is in the format and probably not playable. But like if if Fearsome Whelp is good enough with this nerf, then I think people are like, oh, maybe I should just play Dragon Servant. Like, maybe I can play like 8 of these.
The thing about Fearsome Whelp is it's perpetual. And it stacks over time. So, like, the reason it's good is because dragons are expensive. Like, you're running Town Razor Tyrants and Goldspan Dragons and the Inferno Mount, whatever, from AFR.
Mm-hmm.
So you're, like, you end up with, a bunch of dragons in your hand. And it's not like you can just cast them all. So if you're, playing kind of a longish game, like because the whelp is perpetual, you end up getting to a point where like dragons in your hand are only costing you colored mana to cast.
So it's just one dragon, right? It's not all the dragons
No,
in your
it's
hand?
all of them.
Oh, okay. I thought it was one. Okay, so that's just absurd and like that's just poor design, isn't it? Right, like this is why we had to like ban Ayavugan, right? Because this one card took 8 mana off all my other cards in my deck.
Yeah.
Over the course of 2 turns. And it's like, oh, I have 4 dragons in my hand. This took 8 mana off of my dragons over 2 turns. Okay, I thought it was just one. So okay, no, Dragon
all of them.
It is a much worse Dragon Servant. But yeah, I thought it was just one. Okay. I've literally never played with it. I think I've only played against it like once or twice.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of my go-to historic deck right now is that deck.
Okay. So those are all of the those are most of the historic changes. Now, for the thing that's going to shake the format up.
Oh, what's that? Did I miss one?
Yeah, you did. We skipped it. We saved it till the end because it's the best.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We getting in the dungeons, baby!
Yeah, change that, like, nobody asked for?
Yeah, so the majority of the changes that were made to Alchemy they were like, all the dungeon cards are trash. We would like people to play dungeon cards. So we are going to improve all of the dungeon cards. Because that will be good. So they changed Acererak to, what was it? Instead of when your opponent attacked, when you attacked, your opponent had the choice to sack a creature. And then if they did, you got a 2/2. Now it's when it attacks, you get a 2/2. So
is it bad that I didn't even know that text existed on that card?
Has any like I've only ever been attacked by an Acererak like once.
Yeah, no, it's just a combo piece.
It is a combo piece. Like it doesn't matter what the card says. Like it does not impact like how that card plays. Like you want to get a Paradox Engine on the board and 3 mana rocks, and then you just want to cast your entire deck, preferably 4 mana rocks, so you also get infinite mana. Yeah. Right? Yeah, so that doesn't really change what that card does. Like, no one's been, like, playing a Acererak beatdown.
I'm going to get through this dungeon, like the longest dungeon, to have an undercosted beater.
Yeah.
With keyword big.
Okay, I thought this would... Tell you how, like, about things I am. The next card, Assemble from Parts, I thought was an AFR card. But no,
I thought it was an AFR card.
It is not, because it has a perpetual ability on it. So this card just doesn't... no one's ever... I've literally never seen that card on the stack or in a game.
Yeah, me neither.
So back to dungeons. So Cloister Gargoyle, that was a 2 and a white 0/3 that ventured when it came into play, and then if you completed a dungeon, it became a 3/3 flyer. It's now 1 and a white and an 0/4 that keeps all that same text. So they knocked the mana off.
Other way around. It was an 0/4, now it's an 0/3.
Oh, I'm sorry. So 0/4 to 0/3. Okay, so they make it a little bit smaller, but they reduce the mana cost.
Yeah.
Fine. Is anyone playing that card? Like
again, it's the same problem as a Acererak, though. You're putting like all this effort over multiple turns to get through a dungeon to get an undercosted beater.
Yeah, like that's not good enough.
Yeah.
They fixed what people deemed one of the like 5 worst lands in the history of Magic. So
fixed in air quotes.
Yeah. Dungeon Descent was the rare land from AFR that entered the battlefield tapped, produced colorless mana, and then if you paid 4 mana, tapped it, and a legendary creature, you got to venture once into a dungeon.
At sorcery speed.
At sorcery speed. So now it enters untapped, and you only have to pay 1 and tap a legendary creature to venture into a dungeon at sorcery speed.
Yeah.
I would have played this card in my Ugin Historic Brawl deck, but they banned Ugin. So now I have no use for colorless lands that have like marginal abilities. So thanks.
How many untapped colorless legendary creatures did you have?
Ulamog?
I think he's much better used attacking than venturing into a dungeon.
You Ulamog someone and then immediately tap him to venture to scry one. Great.
You're silly.
Great. Here we go. Yeah. The ultimate flex. I will now tap it. And I will scry one. Or I will tap it and I will gain 1 life. So LA Wick Thumblestrum.
Yeah, another card nobody's playing.
But they lowered the ultimate from 7 to 6. I don't even know what it does for an ultimate, but I don't think it matters.
It's like overrun for each time you've completed a dungeon, I think.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so not a card.
Yeah.
And then Fate's Reversal. So this one, part of what I think they realized is they costed venturing in a dungeon as 1 mana.
Yeah.
Right, Cloister Gargoyle, they made it a 3 mana card as opposed to a 2 mana card because they thought venturing was worth a mana.
Yeah.
And so they have Fate's Reversal, which was 1 and a black raised dead venture.
Mm-hmm.
And they realized that venturing is not worth a mana. So now it's just a black raised dead venture.
Yeah.
Right. So I think they just what was the so in Midnight Hunt, they did not tack an extra mana on.
Yeah. What's that card?
On any of the decayed zombie cards.
Yeah.
Right? But in AFR they tacked an extra mana on all of the venture cards. And they're like, "Oh, Venture's not that good."
No, definitely not worth a mana.
And then they made Find a Path so it makes any colors of mana as opposed to just GG. Like, I feel like they're desperately trying to make an Abzan Venture deck work.
Yeah. I mean, all of these cards are red or black, green, or white.
Here is another Puppet Razor, another card that is a alchemy card that I had never seen anyone talk about ever, so we're going to skip it. Yep. And then, Precipitous Drop, the, Venture, neg 2? And if you complete a dungeon, it was neg 5. They took it from 2 in a black to 1 in the black, so they basically made it closer to, it's somewhere between Myers Grasp. It's like a bad deadweight.
It's a more expensive deadweight that Ventures.
Yeah, that can be like an amazing Myers Grasp. It's like bad Myers Grasp that can become amazing Myers Grasp.
Yeah.
If you have made it all the way through a dungeon. And then they made the Triumphant Adventurer, the Death Touch guy that gets first strike when he's attacking, and ventures when he deals damage, from a 1/1 to a 2/1. So you actually have to block it now.
Yeah. They cut the clock in half.
Yeah. So fine. It just feels like they were no one plays venture cards. So
yeah, I wonder how much of this is AFR was the best selling set we've ever had, and we want these people to also play on Arena. But
maybe
Adventures is bad, so we'll make Adventures good, so all these people that came to Magic from D&D want to play on Arena.
But these venture cards aren't good. I think you still
they're still not good.
Yeah, you still get clowned by mono green.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or whatever dragons is still just wrecking you.
The whole mechanic is dirtily, right? That's all you're doing is dirtling.
Yeah. Getting incremental advantage in Magic hasn't been about incremental advantage in 3 years.
Unfortunately.
Well, maybe not quite 3 years, 2.5 years. Right? It's been bury you. Okay.
Right.
Or run you down. But incremental mid-range is not a thing.
Right.
Magic is run you down, tempo you out so you never cast a spell. So I guess maybe that's incremental advantage. Or do something so giant that the previous 8 turns didn't matter. Mm-hmm. Making the correct double block is no longer a skill outside of draft. Right? That's just not something that's in constructed Magic anymore. And Venture is just I'm gonna get a little bit something extra this turn. And your opponent's 7/6. I guess it's counterable, or 7/8. I guess it's counterable now. But you're not blue. Ba-bam! It's oh, I'm going to cast a removal spell. Bounce it. I'll cast it.
No,
bounce
you're not.
It. Okay, I guess my turn's over. Go.
Yeah.
Bounce your 2/1 Death Toucher. Take 7. Ba-bow. How's that treasure that you got treating you? So, yeah, I don't see it being being a player in the format. But if it
I don't think so.
So this is one of those times where I think still look at cards from a competitive standpoint.
Yeah, the standpoint that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on in Bronze. Right? There are probably some, as they say in the shooters, some really sweaty people grinding their way up from Bronze, right?
Yeah.
But there might just be people that are just having a blast playing their venture deck.
Maybe.
Or they're in unranked playing their venture deck, just having a grand old time. And maybe this makes
maybe
this like makes their grand old time slightly better. Maybe instead of having a 30% win rate, they have a 40% win rate, and their life is just infinitely better.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually winning more. This is so much fun.
I wonder if unranked is just like the kitchen table.
I mean, I will dip in there from time to time. Like, if I'm like, oh, I've got like a white quest and like I'm not playing a white deck, I will dust off random pile of white life gain cards. And go there and play. And it is a little different, but it's not like, at least for historic, it's not like this like great awesome place where like fun magic's being played. Like you still have just like, you know, your opponent's like faithless looting into thrilling discovery, into flashback faithless looting, into like loop, like into like cast Dragonstorm off of a reanimation spell, and you're just like, woo, cool, awesome, good times. Right, so like it's not like it's just this like cool place of like fun decks. Now, you will not talk me out of my conspiracy that they definitely like when you change decks, you start playing against different decks.
Yeah.
So like maybe the decks I'm playing like put me in like a more competitive like group, and there's just like a fun little sandbox of people playing venture decks.
All against each other.
Yeah.
I'm going to venture faster than you.
Yeah, it's just like venture decks and like blue-green uncommons. Like just someone playing kicker. It's like kicker versus venture. Like maybe there's like a secret just draft archetype queue that like I don't know about. Where it's like, did you enjoy this draft archetype? Play the best version of it here against other draft archetypes. So yeah, I don't know. I think looking at it as like, this does not compete with the cards that are currently in Alchemy. While fair, I don't think like why this is why these changes are made. But I also am not someone who can like wrap my head around, I'm going to play a deck that I enjoy that has a 30% win rate, because I can only take a 30% win rate so long before there is no joy.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, at least for me, that's part of
the joy. Part is of like
my joy in the game is, you know, winning.
Yeah. So like so like if there's people that are just getting their 30% win rate and having a blast, like cool, but I just can't do that, because unfortunately a lot of times Arena almost feels like a task I must accomplish. It's like I need to get my 4 wins, and sometimes I just want to get my 4 wins as quickly as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
Now yesterday I got like a bunch of wins because like I was messing around with that like Jeskai deck and like, oh, okay, this is like reasonable. But there are definitely days where I'm just like, I want to get my 4 wins, put down my iPad, and not think about this again until tomorrow when I have to get 4 wins. And then like I lose like 3 games in a row, and I'm like, come on, I've just wasted like 30 minutes where I should be like, I'm having fun. And I'm just happening to get my 4 wins. But sometimes it's very much just like, I need to get my 4 wins because they are giving me things for getting 4 wins. And I want to go 4-0 and then go about my day.
Yeah.
Please let me go about my day.
Well, good news for you is we'll have a new draft format soon.
We will, which will get me many a win. Because I do. That is the best part of Magic now, is like the draft format. Like the 2 or 3 weeks where like I'm drafting. Like that is the best, where I like, you know, I've got to like pace myself and not just like burn all my drafts in like the first week. Though I do think I should note like when I put money in, because I think I only bought gems once or twice last year.
Yeah, so, I don't think I did at all.
Like, I think I'm due to buy gems. I think I might only bought them once. I might have bought them at the like start of the year and then not bought gems after that. But I'm like to the point where like I'm going to need gems now.
Yeah.
And like, so I should just see how long I can stretch it for.
No, I don't do near the number of drafts that you do. I pretty much just carry over, my saved up gold, which is normally, I don't know, like 45 or 50,000. And then I normally end like the previous draft with 6,000 gems, which will get me like my pass in like 3 drafts. And that's all I go into like the next season with. And I just see how many I can do until I get back to 0 gold and like 6,000 gems.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've put money into the game in at least a year.
Yeah, I think I might have done it once. Like, I don't remember. So. All right, so we've had a super long podcast. We talked about all the changes that mattered. And
some that didn't matter.
And some that didn't matter. I don't know, I just want, like, I guess I'm to the point where I'm, like, a lot of Legacy and, like, maybe Modern players where, like, I want the formats as, like, they were a few years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and, like, no amount of bans is going to get us back there. Like,
right.
The cards that they print now are just too good. So,
that's kind of an interesting point. I wonder how much of this we would feel different about if the pandemic didn't happen and like we just kept playing the Magic that we were playing.
Yeah, like how much of it is like almost feeling like you missed out on 2 years of
trying to go back to a format that doesn't exist versus like having been in it and changed with the format.
Yeah, I mean that could very well be part of it because like haven't played Modern in like forever.
Yeah.
And, like, I look at Modern and it just seems so foreign. Like,
there's nothing in Modern that's like the Modern we used to play.
Yeah, like, I kept up with it. But, like, think, like, when we last, like, played, right, the next set was Ikoria, which just... Ikoria, like, did the most to change Magic of, like, any set in history.
Yeah.
Which is wild to say. Like, there are 5 cards out of that set that have like drastically changed Magic forever. And like we never participated in those. Like we didn't play like the Legacy Loris days, right? We haven't played
which we normally would have.
Yeah, we haven't played Legacy Modern Loris, right? Like it's just like we left and it was like, oh, Tron is a good deck, and like Liliana. Like 3-mana Liliana is a playable Magic card. And then you come back and it's just like, oh, this is so different than what I left. Like, I missed something. I, like, disconnected.
Yeah.
Or, like, just, like, in, like, Legacy and even Modern, right? Think about how long, like, Tron was a deck. Like, a legit, like top-tier deck.
The entirety of Modern.
And, like, it's still a deck. But, like, it's not, a top tier, like, amazing deck.
Right.
Right? Like, think about how long, like, Lily Jund was in the format. Like, from the time Innistrad was printed. No. So, Tron is 2.3% of the metagame.
Man.
Right? Like, that's just wild.
The 10th most played deck?
Something like that, yeah. 10th most. All right, even, like, Amulet Titan. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's 3% of the metagame. It just feels like everything changed, and we just were, like, watching.
Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4... 5 complete new archetypes before you even get to Tron.
So, Hammer Time, Blink, Murktide, Crashing Footfalls.
And Yawgmoth.
Yeah. So, well, Yawgmoth was kind of around before.
Yeah, it was like on the fringy edges.
Yeah, it was, oh gosh, who is that person that, like, played Burn and then played this, like, on the SCG tour? Anyway. It was like one person on the SCG tour played it. And that was the SCG tour. Yeah.
It was Aaron Barrich.
Yes, there we go. So
I don't believe their name is Aaron any longer, though.
Yeah, I don't know what it is now either. But yeah, you had like, yeah, there's like just totally new decks that like never existed, and it's like, oh, that's really weird. Burn still just holding on, doing the Lord's work,
keeping people honest.
Yeah. Would you like a $500 modern deck? Can I interest you in Burn?
Yeah.
Which also wild. $500 for Burn. Anyway, with all that, us wishing for nostalgia. Oh my god. I just clicked on the deck. Eidolon of the Great Revels is $16 a pop.
Man, that just had a reprint not that long ago either.
$16, dear God. Lava Spike got reprinted, and it's still like $3 a card.
Crazy.
Lava Spike is more expensive than Lightning Bolt.
I mean, it's had way less printings.
Fair. But yeah. So with all of this, I think we have a show.
We have a show.
So if you would like to tell us what you think should have been banned, or what you think needs to change to make Magic a better place, you can tweet at us at CasualTryPod.
Yeah, you can also hit us up on Facebook at CasualTryHardMTG, or email us, show@CasualTryHardMTG.com. I love getting your emails. Send me emails. Like I said at the top of the show, Neon Dynasty is right around the corner. If you're looking to pre-order anything, we would appreciate it if you use our TCG Player affiliate link, tcg.casualtryhardmtg.com. Follow that link to TCG Player. Anything you do after that, we will get a cut of to help keep the show going. Makes us happy. Please do that. If you want to support us a little bit more directly, you can do so at patreon.com/casualtryhardmtg. Chip a couple bucks in, get access to our show notes, get access to our pre-show, and get put on my mailing list. Get some cool swag in your hands occasionally. We also have our Discord that's been absolutely blowing up this entire episode, so I'm going to have to check that.
Yeah, new person entered, and then everyone just like welcomed them and started talking.
For like the last hour, all I've heard is bloop, 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 bloop. I got one more favor to ask everybody if they're still listening. And that's to share the show. Like, if you guys like what we do here, tell your friends at your LGS, and maybe, post your favorite episode up on your social media or something. We're always looking for ways to grow the show, and it would really mean a lot to us if, even if you didn't sign up for, Patreon, or didn't want to throw us your scratch through our affiliate link. Share the show. Let's get some more ears on us. See what happens.
Yep, so with that, we will catch you on the internet.
We'll catch you on the internet.
I did it right this week.